Hello everyone, it's Ange de Lumière coming for another episode of High Vibe Monday, which is also going to go on my YouTube channel called The Spiritual Lawyer as a video. It's a podcast episode as well, so for those of you who are watching me on YouTube, my podcast is called High Vibe Monday with a hashtag in front, all in one word. Let me introduce myself again for those of you who don't know me. I call myself a spiritual lawyer. I'm an author and I'm an intuitive business strategist, and I help female entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs who have big visions for their business and the impact they're here to make in this world. So I help them by building their confidence, because often their dream is so big that it's almost overwhelming. So I build their confidence in themselves to be the person to make that dream a reality. And I do that also by helping them tune into their intuition so that they can have that sort of Satnav, satellite navigation system that can tell you which way to go on the path of manifesting this big vision, because visionaries rarely go down motorways on creating their big vision and the impact they make in the world. They often have to go on the road less traveled, and in order to do that you really need to have a top-notch intuition, because everybody else cannot see what you see. And that can be difficult to feel alone, not to doubt yourself constantly. This has been the case for me. And intuition has really, really helped. And I love working with my ideal clients to help build her confidence to believe in herself. And in the universe as well, because I work with the law of attraction. So, without further ado, let's get cracked with the today's episode, which is your upper limit. Now, you might have heard the expression "your upper limit." It's a subject that's been delved on by Hendrix in his book The Big Leap. And I've decided that once a month I'm going to do a sort of business book review, but it's going to have my touch on it. So you won't have like a summary of the book as such. But I will encourage you, and I'll probably put the link to the book on my show notes on my website, which is called icanhelpyouthrive.com. So let's get on. What did I want to tell you about the Big Leap? Well, first of all, what's really interesting is in December I mentioned another book written by Hendrix as well, which is called The Corporate Mystic, and it got me incredibly excited. I'm going to show you the cover of it. I can't show you the cover of The Big Leap because I have it only as an audio. And The Corporate Mystic was written by Hendrix and Kate Ludman. I don't know if that was written before or after The Big Leap. I will research that and probably put it in the show notes. But I find it really, really interesting. Check episode 55 of the podcast to find out. And I think I called it Are You a Business Mystic? In case you're looking on YouTube. So after I read the Corporate Mystic, I thought, oh my God, I'm going to read again, or listen, it's an audiobook for me, to The Big Leap again. And every book has an underlying premise, okay? One strong idea that underlines the book. So in The Corporate Mystic, Hendrix's underlying idea is that you can actually find mystics in business, in corporations, and they're modern mystic, and they're more spiritual than some people that you find in church. It's not his exact words, but that's the underlying idea. And the underlying premise of The Big Leap is that we have a limited capacity for success and happiness. And the reason for this is because we have been through so many hardships as a race, the human race. We've experienced wars, we've experienced disasters, we still do in certain parts of the world. And now what happens as well is that because of the media and the television, we actually get to experience other people's disaster and everything else. But what happens is, yes, it's good so that we can have the compassion and that we help out others and we know what's happening in the world. But there's a certain level of trauma that happens with that, but also a conditioning that the world is not a safe place. And that's really important to become aware of that so that we can change our attitudes towards life in general, because I work with the law of attraction, and if you believe that the world is not a safe place, then you are going to attract situations to you that prove the underlying belief that you have. Now, I'm talking about all this because of the what I'm talking about, which is the limited capacity for success and happiness. Now, you can understand that if you have an underlying belief that being happy or being successful is actually either hard or impossible, or that whenever you're happy something bad happens, then you're going to recreate this as a cycle. And I wasn't aware that I was doing this until I decided to listen to the book again over Christmas. Because I've mentioned this several times, but this might be the first episode that you listen to. I had a car accident back in March 2019, at the time when I was the most successful in my business. I had done my best income month. I was happy. I was working with wonderful VIPs. I felt on top of the world, to be honest. And then suddenly this car accident wrecked everything. I couldn't sit. I was in extreme pain, and it's only a month ago that the pain completely left me. I'm not able to run just yet, and I miss running. That's for another story, but it's still important for me, for my fitness and everything. So I'm not completely back to where I was in March last year. But there's been some great progress. But what I wanted to say is that when I reflected on that, back then, my coach said to me, are you sure this is not an upper limit thing that's happened to you? And I said, no. I wasn't ready to see it. And I'm so glad she planted the seed in my mind, because 10 months later, I can now see how this could have been an upper limit problem. Now, let's talk about what the upper limit is. It's this sort of glass ceiling that's above you, and whenever you get to a level of happiness that you're not used to, or a level of success or prosperity or love, whatever it is, you will create, consciously or subconsciously, an event that will bring you back to a level of happiness, success, or love that is manageable for you, that is familiar. Now you might wonder, why would we want to restrict our happiness? But the point is, even though if we're miserable in a certain area, like let's suppose that you were struggling financially, you know you can cope with this. And this is your comfort zone. Being rich, you don't know what it feels like. And the mind, the human mind, actually doesn't like change, even if it's a change for the positive, because the ego feels threatened. You've survived so far with your struggles, and some people actually take pride in how many struggles they've been through, because it's built their strength, their stamina, their endurance, their determination. But what they don't understand is the other side of the coin is they'll probably create more struggles to continue to prove to themselves how strong they are, or because their ego has that upper limit in the satisfaction and ease and success and happiness that they experience. And anything above that, they don't feel comfortable with it, and so they will sabotage themselves. This is where the inner saboteur comes in. Does that make sense? So, what was I going to say next? I have notes, because I want to make sure I talk about all the aspects that I want to cover today. And the first step is to become aware of it. So I became aware that this car accident was possibly my upper limit at stake. And you might say, but you didn't create the accident. It's true. I wasn't the one who created the accident. Someone literally drove into the back of our car when we were stationary on the road at a traffic light, and the person didn't stop. But you create your own reality. We all create our own reality. And if this is something that shocks you, then we'll have to talk about it again, because this is important that we become aware. It's not to make you feel guilty about what happens in your life. I've had a lot of hardships, and I'm not saying that it's because I'm a bad person, that I deserve it. Maybe I did something in a past life. This is really, when people hear about past lives and whatever and karma, and they think that this is how it works, that's not true at all. Karma is really the law of attraction, which means that whatever vibration we put out, and it's not our words, it's how we feel, will attract the same. So it's not a punishment, it's just a feedback system. It shows you that if you have a poverty consciousness and you think there's never enough money, then your reality daily will be, I don't have enough money, there's never enough money. But if you believe something else, then the same will be true. Our beliefs really create our reality because it puts like glasses on our eyes and we see everything through that filter. So if you think success ends up in a crisis, then it's likely to happen as well. This is what the upper limit is, and I find it absolutely fascinating. So I looked back on my life and I realized that I had a massive crisis, a health crisis in 2011, and that was when my business was taking off again. So I can see the pattern now. I had organized a workshop to help people write their books in person and had people signed up. I had completely redesigned my business from being a clinical hypnotherapist to being a book coach. I had hired a coach. I had a sponsor. Everything was going well. I felt happy. It was in 2011. That's not true. At that time, I wasn't doing that. I was promoting my Slim Soul coach training as part of my the business that I was building that was around my book called The Journey of the Slim Soul. And lo and behold, on the back of everything well, of me feeling happy and successful, I had a pretty traumatic health scare. And again, if we do it again, I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself, but in 2013, I built my business again. I pivoted into book coaching. As I said, I hired a coach. That's when it's really happened. I had a sponsor and I rebranded myself. It was called I Can Help You Write. I had a beautiful design for everything. I created a workshop in person. People had signed up, and my dad died. And that literally tanked my business because I just couldn't face the idea of running a workshop. I cancelled everything and I went into shock. Now, of course, I didn't create my father's death, but the pattern exists. And if the pattern exists, it's creating a subconscious belief for me. If I'm too happy, something bad happens. So if it's a belief that maybe you have in you, just become aware of it. Now, Hendrix talks about mindset and how important it is. And I don't know if you've heard about it, but business is 50% mindset, if not more. Mindset, strategy without mindset means nothing because you can actually sabotage yourself if you haven't worked on your mindset. You might have the most beautiful strategy in the world, but if the mindset's not in place, you're going to either procrastinate or create drama or all sorts of things. And what Hendrix says is there's 4 common upper limit issues. One is the feeling of being flawed. I don't know if I pronounced this word right. And that means that you think there's something wrong with you. And I said me because I feel there's always something wrong with me. I was being made to feel as a child that there was something wrong with me, and I carry that with me wherever I go. Well, I'm peeling it off, but this is one of the causes why you might have an upper limit. The second one is the fear of betrayal. So if you do something, you might be considered as a traitor towards your community. I did that as well. I moved from Paris to London. I'm not in London anymore, but I moved to the UK. I never came back. My family of origin thinks I have betrayed them. So that's going to create an upper limit problem. 3, the fear that success brings a bigger burden. Now, I don't know if you have these sort of thoughts, but I know for myself, I believe that if I'm very, very successful, then something else will have to suffer, either my health or my relationship, or I will neglect my children. So that's number 3. I already tick 3 boxes. How many boxes do you tick? I'm interested to know. If you watch this, you can always come and feedback on my Facebook page, I Can Help You Thrive, or put a comment under the show notes on my website. The 4th one is the fear of outshining others. And that's a fear that I have myself as well, because in school I was a very bright kid, and bright kids are always picked on. So I actually dimmed my intelligence, and I know my kids did the same, so to fit in so that they wouldn't be picked on. It's the tall poppy syndrome, and it's also very, very common. So what we need to do is to commit to increasing our capacity for happiness, love, success, and abundance. Okay, so I want to give you a little example, and this doesn't mean at all. I actually post something about it on my page today because I'm running this 30 Days in the Vortex event. And I did a whole podcast episode on that last week. So go back to last week's episode if you want to learn more about it. It's not finished yet. And I'll be doing some live readings on my page on the 31st of January with the Law of Attraction and Money Abraham Hicks cards. So if you want a message about your abundance, about how to stay in the vortex, how to be high vibe, how to use the Law of Attraction, please come along. We'll be playing, and that'll be a lot of fun. So Gay Hendrix shares an example in his book at the beginning of how he had been having the best day ever in his business. He was feeling really, really happy. And his mind, his ego, created a worry for him to dampen his happiness because he wasn't used to that level of happiness. Does that make sense? Do you suddenly start worrying in the middle of being really, really happy? Almost as if you had to sabotage your happiness. Well, I do that, and I think most people do. So you're in good company. What you need to do is to nip it in the bud. Okay, just recognize what you're doing. Become aware that this is your upper limit at stake, or at play, sorry. But it's also a sign that good things are on their way, because if you become aware of it, you can realize how much worrying is a waste of time. Now, I don't know if it's exactly the words of the Dalai Lama, but I love what he says about worrying. It's basically, if you worry about something you can do something about, then just do it. And if you worry about something that you can't do anything about, then stop worrying, because it just doesn't work. Worry is a complete waste of time. 90% of the time, the things we worry about never happen. And if it happens, I can give you some examples. You probably will cope better than you think, or it's not going to be as bad as you think when it does. Think about all the cancer survivors, and a lot of them, I mean, not all of them. I've heard time and time again, people say, this is the best thing that ever happened to me. It was a wake-up call. I needed this to change my life. So this is what these crises create for us. So stop worrying, because even if it happened, you need to come to, and I know it's very, very hard to do because I'm still struggling with it myself. So I'm not saying that I've arrived and that you're behind and that there's anything, that you're less than perfect for worrying. But what I want to say is that we need to lean into this feeling that the universe has our backs, and that nothing is actually good and bad. Everything happens for a reason. Now, I know this doesn't help people who are in the thick of grief or trauma or a crisis, but it's important to keep it in mind so that it helps us to take along. We don't have to know the reason. We just have to trust that first we have the capacity to face these crises, and second, that we will gain some benefit from it at some point. Be it wisdom, be it compassion for other people who go through the same thing, whatever it is, we will be better persons for it. Does that make sense? So you could be worrying about becoming richer and more successful because you believe that rich and successful people are dishonest, for example. So your upper limit will kick in whenever you get to that stage because you don't want to be dishonest. So you stop yourself from actually what you want. There's a misalignment between what you want and what your subconscious believe about what you want. Does that make sense? And I'm all about helping my clients align their beliefs with their desires. And that's how you do it. Now, just to go back with an example, I divorced my first husband, and it was one of the best things I ever did. It was traumatic. I moved actually to the UK with my two young children, who were then 6 and 2. But I know it was one of the best decisions that I made to leave him. So, let's stop labeling things as good or bad. Let's just try to embrace life with its lessons, its blessings, its hidden blessings as well. Now, what Gay Hendrix also recommends that we do, and I think that's a great suggestion, is that we go on a criticism and blame diet. Okay? So he says they're all upper limit symptoms. So again, as I said, there's a real worry and a fake worry. There's a real criticism and a fake criticism. He calls it the upper limit criticism. So the real criticism is someone stepping on your foot, it hurts, you tell them, they take their foot away from yours and you get better. That's real criticism. It's not even criticism, it's just a fact. It's fact stating. And then there's the upper limit criticism, which is not real. And have you ever done that? It happens in all relationships. I know I do that with my husband. We both do it the other way. It's like you get upset, but you're not really aware why you're upset, and so you have a go at your significant other. You project your problem onto them. So when and it's also because we are not actually that trained to receive. At least I don't think the people who are listening to my podcast are. So we give, we deplete ourselves, and when we receive abundance, when we receive happiness, it feels so uncomfortable because it's a novel experience. And as a consequence, we will step in with those symptoms of criticism or blame or whatever it is. And Hendrix also talks about the fact that the biggest obstacle to taking the big leap, to go for your big vision, and as you probably heard at the beginning of this podcast episode, my ideal client has a really, really, really big vision. And the biggest obstacle is the fear of failure. So this is actually really tricky and really interesting, and I hope it's going to shine a light on what some of your maybe behaviors around your big dream. If you have a big dream or a big vision and you don't act on it, you keep the hope about it. Yeah, it's there, you can think about it, maybe it nags you a little bit, it annoys you because you haven't done it yet, but at least you haven't acted on it, so you haven't failed. Imagine if you have a fear of failure about your big vision, then you won't want to take any steps, because that might actually take the hope out of the equation, and you might become despaired because you won't have that big vision anymore. You sabotaged it, that's it, it's gone, and what is left for you in life? Does that make sense? But it's the same as if you never ask, if you never do something, the answer will always be no. The illusion that your ego is creating is that it's thinking that by keeping the dream a dream and not making it real, it will preserve it. But what it does really, a dream in a cupboard, a dream that's locked up in a cabinet will never come true. So it's like putting a no on your dream. But the ego, because it's so twisted, and I love my ego because it's not only negative, it serves a purpose. It wants to keep you safe. It wants to keep you from failure, from feeling rejected, from feeling from feeling bad, and that's why it's keeping your little dream. And it's almost like it keeps a lock on the door by putting illusions in the system and saying, well, it's a beautiful dream. What if you fail? Don't do it because you might fail, and then if you fail, you'll feel worse for it. So it's best if you keep it in that little cabinet. Does that make sense? So the ego will create all sorts of excuses why you're not ready or you shouldn't be manifesting your big vision, and it will look like this because the ego and the fear is a shapeshifter. It never presents to you exactly its true face. It always wears a mask. So you're afraid of failure, but what you're going to think or what it's going to appear like is going to be, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money. My family wouldn't be able to cope with my big vision. Does that make sense? And it's only when you commit to your big vision and you go past those fears and you go past those masks that the universe will come and meet you where you are. So it's like a Satnav. Suppose you wanted to go from A to B. You have this big vision that's at B, but you're so afraid to leave your home. It's like the hero's journey, which I think I mentioned in the last episode. You're calling to action, you have an adventure that's awaiting for you, but you're too afraid to leave your house. If you don't leave your house, your Satnav system will never give you guidance of where to go next. In your car, if you have one of those satellite navigation system, you have to move your car in order to be able to receive the guidance. And it's the same for your life. If you stay put, if you don't move, nothing will happen and you won't get guidance. And all you'll be stuck in your mind rehearsing and rehashing everything about the whys, the plus, the minuses, and you'll drive yourself nuts. I have done that myself. So it's really important that you commit to your big vision. And the way to do that is not necessarily by taking a huge step. I'm going to suggest that you just say to yourself a very simple mantra. Hendrix calls it the ultra successful mantra, but I just wanted to call it a mantra. And it just says, you can repeat to yourself, every day I increase my capacity for love, success, and prosperity. Now, what this will do, it will soothe your ego. It will soothe your fears. It's almost like you're giving orders to your subconscious mind. I'm ready to increase my capacity for love, success, and prosperity. And this will actually give orders to your subconscious to find opportunities to increase your capacity for love, to increase your capacity for success, to increase your capacity for prosperity. Now, how does that look? Sometimes it looks like a crisis. I know, for example, with my husband, we're both from broken marriages. So we have scars, we have things, we have buttons that we can press from each other. And to increase our capacity for love, very often we need to have an argument or a crisis or feel uncomfortable so that we release one of these old stories that we have that have been created from our previous partners or previous spouses. Does that make sense? So if you'd like some support to manifest your big dreams, I would love to work with you. I want to talk to you about my VIP offer briefly. It's at the moment, but there's going to be a price increase in June. So I encourage you to come and work with me because you'll be able to lock the price in. At the moment, it's £1,398 for 3 months. I'm not quite sure what it is in US dollars. Let me have a quick check. Bear in mind though that the exchange rate change all the time, and especially with Brexit and all the that can be up and down. But to give you an indication, it's about $1,800 for 3 months. What you get is I will take you from doubt to confidence about your big vision. I'll get you from confusion to clarity, and I'll get you from sabotage to taking consistent positive action towards manifesting your dream. Before I go, I want to read you a testimonial that my one of my VIPs has written. I worked with her for 4 to 5 months last year, and it's been an absolute pleasure to see her flourish. And I now see her on social media, what she shares. She's embraced her big vision, and it just makes my heart sing. So here's what she said. Before I worked with Ange, I felt uninspired in my business for a while. I loved working with clients, but I knew there was something more that I was missing, and I could not figure it out. During our first session, Ange connected me with my big vision. The vision resonated so completely and was something I had seen for myself but didn't believe until Ange came along and showed me the way. Each session with Ange was a delight. She's a healer, mentor, teacher, motivator, and friend, all rolled into one smiling, warm soul. This is where I blush. She's magical and practical, and exactly the role model that I needed. She helped me believe in myself and my business wholeheartedly. If you're thinking of working with Ange, do it. You won't regret it. So what I suggest, if you're interested to work with me as a VIP, head over to my website, icanhelpyouthrive.com, and book what I call a discovery call. It's a 20 minutes chat, and we can talk about the options. I can even make a custom VIP package for you if you want. The regular one is 8 sessions over 3 months. We do 4 sessions the first month because we're setting the foundations of your big vision. So we go through clarifying your big vision. We go through identifying what possible obstacles will come in the way. There's 6 main obstacles that people experience. Let me just grab my notes because I'm about to do a masterclass about this. So I've identified 6 main obstacles, okay? I'm going to give them to you today. It's lack of confidence, lack of clarity, lack of commitment, lack of stamina, like the energy and the motivation, lack of accountability, and lack of alignment. These are all the areas that I can work in to help you. So we'll identify which one, and the lady who just wrote the testimonials that I read to you today, she said she ticked all the boxes. So we worked through all of them. But you could have only one or two. It doesn't matter. Everything I do is completely customized, especially because I work intuitively. I tune into your energy. I tune into the energy of your big vision. I tune into the energy of your business, and I make sure they're all on board. So I would love to hear from you if you're excited about my VIP offer. I will be talking to you again next week. I'm not entirely sure what the topic's going to be. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and I wish you a wonderful week. Bye for now.